Madam Speaker, I will deal firstly with probably the most important part, or one of the most important parts of this bill that relates to the Gambling Regulatory Authority, and then I'll take the other parts of the bill. Amendments to the Gambling Regulatory Authority. Madam Speaker, in my view, this section of the Finance Bill contains some of the most objectionable and unacceptable amendments to the GRA Act. I am not myself a betting man, neither a horse racing man. It's been years since I've placed a bet. Nevertheless, I respect people who want to go to the races, and I respect people who want to engage in reasonable gambling. I have no problem with that. I want to say also that horse racing is a substantial sport in Mauritius. It's not a joke. It's a substantial sport. It is an industry in its own right. It employs directly and indirectly something like 2,500 people, 2,500 families earn their living from horse racing and the associated betting, etc. That is a large amount of people. And the amount of bets placed, because it's difficult to know because there's a legal betting and there's also the illegal betting, which may be as much, again, as the amount of the legal betting. Let's say it amounts from 5 billion rupees to 7 or 8 billion rupees annually spent by Mauritians on betting on horse races. That is a huge amount of money, and we know, therefore, that there are lots of money to be made legally and illegally from this business. And that is where some of the amendments become objectionable and unacceptable. What is the backdrop to these amendments, which haven't been fully explained at all in the budget speech? What are these amendments? What is the backdrop? The backdrop to these amendments is a commission of inquiry commissioned by the previous government on horse racing. That is the backdrop. That commission of inquiry found in its final report major shortcomings with the Mauritius Turf Club. We have to agree that the commission of inquiry found major shortcomings with the activities, the operations, the governance of the Mauritius Turf Club. That is true. But it also, Madam Speaker, leveled an equal number of very strong criticisms, found equal number of shortcomings with the Gambling Regulatory Authority. That is the case, Madam Speaker. Now, this Commission of Inquiry submitted 23 recommendations in its final report, plus another 13 in its implementation report. So in all, 36 recommendations. The great majority of these recommendations have been totally ignored and have been still ignored here in this finance bill. Worse, Madam Speaker, as we know, the Commission of Inquiry submitted an interim confidential report that disappeared twice at government level. Twice, Madam Speaker, without there ever being a police inquiry or whatever. But let us put that on one side. It is clear that it was willfully made to disappear, this interim report, because maybe some friends, etc., of the present government, I must assume, have been named in that report. Now, Madam Speaker, what does the Commission of Inquiry say about the GRA? Because it is crucial, because today we are giving substantial additional powers to the GRA. Now, what does it say about the GRA? And I quote from the Commission of Inquiry report. It says that GRA is not fit for purpose. It says that GRA has lack of resources, expertise, and experience. It says that the GRA are poorly staffed with little operational capacity. It says that the GRA has no one on the board which has expert knowledge and experience of horse racing. It goes on to say lack of leadership it also says that there's strong political involvement on the board of the GRA. And it also mentions that there's a perception, it does say perception of political influence. Now, these are all the things that are in the Commission of Inquiry on Horse Racing, the final report. Now, in the implementation report, it does make note a few improvements, I must say, but it goes on to say that these findings are heavily caveated and based on the crucial additional resources which need to be provided to the GRA. And, Madam Speaker, the first point is this, that there have been hardly any changes made either to the board of the GRA or to the additional human resources that the GRA requires to do this job. We're still, Madam Speaker, and this is the case that has been raised by the whole of the opposition, we have a chairman at the Gambling Regulatory Authority, Mr. Gulbul. This particular chairman, who is going to have all these additional powers, has been heavily compromised at the Commission of Inquiry this time on drug trafficking because of his supposed alleged involvement, at this stage what it is, alleged involvements with drug traffickers. So this situation, if anything, has gone worse than when the Commission of Inquiry sat. Because now we have a chairman that has been heavily compromised, and we know the connection, apparent connection, between horse racing, betting, and drug trafficking. This is also has come out clearly at the stage of the Commission of Inquiry. So the opposition has very rightly required, demanded the resignation or revocation of this chairman, and he doesn't seem to have had the decency to do so, Madam Speaker. Now, what are the new powers that are going to be given to this GRA, Madam Speaker? Perhaps the most objectionable one is, because they are in number, is this power that the GRA, that the board, this same board that the Commission of Inquiry found had no experience of horse racing, the same board which has as chairman Med Gulbul, the same board which has a majority of the members are civil servants, therefore not experts in any way on horse racing. This board, Madam Speaker, will be able to override any decisions of the Mauritius Turf Club concerning races, etc. Let me just, if I may, it might take a bit of time. I just want to show. So, excuse me. Yeah, here it is, Madam Speaker. Here it is. This is the amendment that is being proposed by inserting after paragraph G the following paragraph. On receipt of a complaint, the GRA, the board of GRA, either on its own initiative, this board can review decisions of a horse racing organizer or its agents or an appeals committee set up under Section 31(1) of the GRA. This is what the GRA is being given a power to do, which did not exist previously. Now, if this power had been given perhaps to the Horse Racing Authority, which was in fact recommended by the Commission of Inquiry, I think probably nobody would have bothered, because the Horse Racing Authority was meant to have all the expertise, including foreign expertise, to be able to judge when a jockey has made a fault or some error or some deliberate cheating, and when some sanction of the appeals committee of the MTC. You may like the MTC, you may not like the MTC, but in my view, they have more experts on horse racing than the GRA, which has none. So I would have understood had government taken the trouble to create the Horse Racing Authority, or to create this independent division of the GRA with an independent board that is independent of political involvement, I would have understood if that power of reviewing and reversing decisions of the NTC had been given to that. But this is not the case. We have the same old, ineffective, inefficient, and unknowledgeable GRA, which is going to take that decision. And, Madam Speaker, that's why I had raised before the issue of the huge amount of gambling that takes place. We talked about 5 to 7 billion rupees, maybe more. Now, what is the situation? You have a race. Maybe some friend of someone has made a bet. Something has happened in the race or may not have happened. The MTC decides this particular horse is the winner. And what does the GRA do? It reverses that decision. So instead of this set of persons making a huge gain, it is another set of persons making the gain. That is the sort of power that is being given to the GRA. Matt Gulbul, I don't know if he's a horse racing expert. I don't know if he's a betting expert, but I would guess he's not. He's, I think, an expert in other matters, but not that. So we are, Madam Speaker, I fail to understand how the cheek of government to come up with this sort of amendment and giving this sort of power to the present Gambling Regulatory Authority. Madam Speaker, we had the chance before of saying that we have a good country, good reputation. We don't want to go backwards. We want to enhance our reputation. This sort of amendment takes us, Madam Speaker, more into the sphere of a banana republic than anything else. And this is the truth. This is the truth. We cannot allow this sort of amendment to be passed today. Madam Speaker, there are other issues regarding the GRA. Now, we should make laws which apply to everybody. We should not make laws which only have an intention of a specific purpose of hurting someone, of taking someone out from a position, or of a law which is téléguidé, Madam Speaker. I'm going to talk now about Section 93, the new Section 93, which is being included in it's on page 39, Madam Speaker, if you want to follow. It's quite complicated, on page 39 of the explanatory memorandum. Now, what does this new paragraph says? It says, and it's again, this is something completely new, I think, to our legislation as far as I know anyway, that a person who is under investigation for any offense of fraud or dishonesty or any other offense as may be prescribed, if that person is part of the licensee, firstly, if he is applying for a license, that person is somewhere involved in a company applying for a license, therefore that company will not be authorized to have a license, but also, and this is new, if a present licensee has on his board, say, or as president or whatever, such a person, his license will not be renewed. And that is Section 93A also. So Section 93 says that that sort of person should not get a license if he's under investigation, and Section 93A is there will be no renewal. Now, it appears quite clearly, Madam Speaker, that this part of the proposed bill actually aims at actually removing one person and one person only, and that is Mr. Mukesh Balgobin, President of the Mauritius Turf Club. This is what is understood by the whole of Mauritius by this section that has been included. Why? Mr. Balgobin has his own theory. he thinks that it is because he has been unkind, unhelpful to a particular friend of government, namely SMS pariahs. This is what he says. And this law comes now. Now, we have been here heard from the Prime Minister, from everyone, right from the start, that if you're under investigation, every day we are told this. If they are under investigation, if there are allegations, then government will do nothing. We'll sit on its hands. We'll do nothing because nothing has been proven. We even have a senior advisor at the level of the Prime Minister's office who every week or every 2 weeks sits in court in an accusation under the Prevention of Corruption Act. Still, he has not been found guilty, and he travels freely and does whatever he wants to do and whatever work government asks him to do, and he sits on his hundreds or tens of boards and even directs his boards. Fair enough. This is what government has told us from the beginning. So why, in this case, only in this case, someone who is merely, and I use merely with caution, because I don't know what Mr. Bagobin may have done or may not have done, but who is under investigation, has not been found guilty by anyone, this should now apply to the Mauritius Turf Club, whereas it applies nowhere else, Madam Speaker. What is good for the goose must be good for the gander. If we are going to put this in the law for the MTC, then it must be in the law for everything else, including all the chairman of, including the present chairman of the GRA probably, who is also chairman of the Law Reform Commission, including the senior advisor at the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Mantroa, and everybody else. Either you have it for everyone, or you don't have it at all. And this is my point of view, Madam Speaker, concerning this particular clause in the bill, which I find totally unacceptable, Madam Speaker. Also, you may know that the offences, which at the moment is fraud or dishonesty, may be changed at any time at the will of the Minister of Finance, I presume in this one. It may be changed at any time because it says fraud or dishonesty under investigation for any offence of fraud or dishonesty or any other offence that may be prescribed. So it would be ridiculous. Tomorrow you can have a traffic offence and it's prescribed and out you go. This is totally unacceptable and cannot be allowed to be included, Madam Speaker, in our laws. Now, I'll go now to the power under Section 33 here for the GRA this time to determine the fees that are going to be paid by totalisator, operator, bookmaker, etc. to the Mauritius Turf Club. What is this? Apparently, these sort of fees account for 75% of the income of the MTC. 75%. Now we're going to have direct interference in the affairs of the MTC because, Madam, this is what Section 33 says, that these people, totalisator, operator, bookmaker, sweepstakes organizer, shall pay to the MTC, Mauritius Turf Club, such amount, not as the board may determine, not as the MTC may determine. You would have thought that the MTC knows the expenses, etc., would have determined what are the fees, but instead it is the GRA which will determine what revenue the MTC receives or doesn't receive, and whatever is decided by the MTC, by the board of the GRA, the same board of GRA which has, according to the Commission of Inquiry, no expertise at all in betting or horse racing, this GRA will determine the fees, and everyone will have to abide by these fees. It's clear, Madam Speaker, that this is going to subject the Mauritius Turf Club to direct control by the GRA and give give GRA the means to put enormous pressure on the MTC. Why, again, this is important? Because we are talking about racing. We are talking about not hundreds of millions, Madam Speaker, of billions and billions of rupees, which are won or which are lost every year at the races. Races can be honestly run or can be very dishonestly run. That is how it happens. Our priority should be that the races in Mauritius should be as honestly run as possible, because people can come to great hardship if they lose their money. They can lose their house, they can lose their life, they can lose everything. They can go bankrupt. People have gone bankrupt, they go bankrupt every year. So, Madam Speaker, our aim as a government should be to improve matters and not to make it worse. In my view, this total political interference in the GRA, which is being presented for voting today in this House, is a huge step backwards. I would like to ask, Madam Speaker, whether, even with the faults that exist at the MTC, whether the public would not be happier to go on as it is, rather than take this huge step backwards and be in the hands of Med Gulbul and his fellow board members. And I would myself, Madam Speaker, prefer the present situation rather than go backwards. This is not to say at all that reform is urgently needed in the horse racing industry in Mauritius. This is why I had raised before the question of not passing this part of the finance bill today and leave it to an actual debate, full debate in the House when a proper bill is given to this House. Proper bill which I want to see take into account all the recommendations, the 36 recommendations of the commissioners of inquiry. It has cost us millions of rupees. All these ought to be taken into account and debated. We will see whether some are good, some are bad, which ones ought to be embodied in law and which ones ought not to be embodied in law. But to play around with betting, Madam Speaker, and horse racing in this way is totally unacceptable. And I'll ask a question. If it is not the Commission of Inquiry which has provided all these recommendations, which has provided all these amendments, because it is not them. Mr. Bengun was on the papers in the weekend. If it is not the commissioners of the Board of Inquiry which have given all these recommendations to the Ministry of Finance, to the Prime Minister, for inclusion in today's bill, then who has? Who has usurped the powers of the Commission of Inquiry to provide these amendments which are totally unacceptable? Is it now Mr. Bikari who has done this? Who? And I think the Minister of Finance should come and tell us who has usurped the powers of the Commission of Inquiry and provided all these totally unacceptable amendments to the law, Madam Speaker. And this is why, as I say, I would like to see this whole part of the bill scrapped. Going on, Madam Speaker, still on the GRA, concerning the limit on cash betting. Very well, this will, of course, reduce money laundering. I think I agree on that. There's no issue, obviously, because you will not be able to buy these tickets after having pretended to have bet. Okay, fair enough, I understand this. But, Madam Speaker, the Commission of Inquiry had in fact identified that the illegal, or supposed that the illegal betting market is at least as much as a legal betting market. And nothing, as we can see, is being done to stop that. And in my humble view, Madam Speaker, this amendment of 2000, whilst it may well prevent money laundering, I accept that, it will, on the other hand, increase substantially illegal betting in Mauritius, which was already enormously high. Now, illegal betting in Mauritius, obviously, it is not controlled, it is more risky for the person who bets, but also, of course, no revenue accrues to government when there's an illegal bet, obviously, because there's no tax that is paid on an illegal transaction. So, Madam Speaker, this, although it is met well, I think, this 2,000 rupee limit, is not a good idea in that it will increase substantially the illegal betting market. And also, I've read in the papers that, I've heard it said that it is being done again. I don't know whether it is true, I hope it's not, to favor, again, our friend, not my friend, SMS pariage, because he has all the machines in place. So, Madam Speaker, you see that all these amendments to the GRA Act have at least a tendency to favor only one operator, and that is the strong smell, Madam Speaker, of favoritism that is generated by these proposals for the Gambling Regulatory Act.